Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We have an extra guest in the studio tonight. Excuse me. So welcome our semi-monthly FEDSA talk. We had to change the topic at the last minute, but thanks for joining us. Before we do anything, let me just thank our sponsors as usual. Keep the lights on, StreamYard running, etc. That's NML and IO, both software development companies in Cape Town that have been supporting us for a very long time. Thanks very much to them. Code Capsules, who sponsor our workshops. Check them out if you want to have some really nice, easy to use hosting, all based in South Africa. And then Codespace Academy, who have been giving us a venue for our workshops for quite a long time. Okay, so the topic for tonight, Schalk is going to speak to us about React 19, which is not out yet, but soon. It's the beta has been available for a while. And one of the really interesting things in that is that React is now giving us pretty good support for web frameworks. I had a look at what's it called, custom components everywhere, and the tests that they've run there. And React 19 is actually passing all the tests that they have. So that's really, really good news. Lots of changes coming to React, but the web components one, I know Schalk has always been interested in these. And I'm sure he sees this as good news. Something that we've had in other frameworks for quite a while, like Preact, Svelte, Angular, have all supported web components. Yeah, so I'll hand over to Schalk, and if you have any questions, just post them in the YouTube chat, and they will be sent through to us here in the StreamYard studio, and we will deal with the questions as they come in. Great, thanks, Schalk. I'll hand over to you.
Cool. All right. Hey, everyone.
And your friend.
And Inga, my friend, my daughter. Yeah. So she, Justin's just like, who is this random kid? So yeah, I haven't seen her for 3 days, and she just got home now. Yeah, she's going to be joining for a while. Inga, say hello vir die mense. Say hello. Say hello. Okay. Yes. Okay, cool. So just give me a second. Ga jy nou maar toe gaan? Okay. Dankie liefie. Okay. All right. What a start. Okay. So if it wasn't clear, I didn't really prepare much. But I think there is so much to say on the topic of, yeah, Inga's big. Like, so I just see Amber. So Amber actually used to be one of my students, and she was actually one of my students when my wife was still pregnant with Inga. Yeah, she's huge. She's turning 3 now. But anyway, okay. Just excuse the noise in the background. All right, let's get back on track. So yeah, I didn't prepare that much for 2 reasons. The one being that there's just more than enough to say, but just like freeballing it. I'm probably going to do a bit of a demo in terms of how to actually use web components with React, because interestingly enough, there is very little info out there. Like if you look at the actual log itself, so the change log, it basically just says that, okay, they're supporting web components now, and it doesn't really tell you how or how. So most of this, I kind of just I was just messing around, just trying to see see some basic stuff, seeing like, okay, cool. Like obviously, does it react to virtual DOM changes? When you pass something through React, is it getting passed as a prop directly, or does it get set as an attribute? Does it do attributes at all? Does it kind of mirror attributes? In other words, if you change the property in the component itself, does the attribute change on? Yeah, sorry, just give me a second quickly. All right, okay. But I wouldn't be heading into a conversation about web components and React in any other way. So let me quickly open up just a basic fig jam, because I do think there's a lot of things that are worth chatting about here. That's maybe easier just to kind of draw out and explain in a visual manner, as opposed to purely just explaining it. Oh, geez. Okay, wait. Okay, I'm not sharing my screen. Shoot. Okay, because I have some client work open here, and I thought, like, oh, there goes all my NDAs. Okay, cool. So I opened up a, I opened up a blank one. Okay, so I, so I've talked about web components quite a bit. Spoken about web components on FedSite itself, spoken at a DevConf, spoken at like a couple of other like kind of conferences and talks and stuff about web components. And so I have my classic, like, what are web components, how do they fit into the picture, what is their relation to frameworks and so forth. And so I was wondering whether I should do that. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think at this point there's enough stuff out there in the wild that you can probably just read up about it on your own, maybe watch some videos and so forth. But I do think that, like, I just want to spend more time focusing exactly on the interplay between React and web components. So first and foremost, let's get the React beta 19. Okay, documentation here. And so actually the web component thing was kind of like up in the air for up until a couple of weeks ago. And then they eventually said, and they committed to it, and they're like, cool, yeah, we're going to have 100% support for web components. As Justin mentioned, there is web components everywhere. I can't spell, but luckily Google is going to correct it for me. So interestingly enough, if you look at it at the moment, like, it's about like 60% support. So it does support web components to some degree, but like looking at Vue, looking at Angular, and so forth and so forth, most of these are in the 90% or 100% support. I'm going to talk about like what these mean pretty soon, and so forth. What does 100% support mean, and so forth. Interesting thing is that it actually has better support for web components than Svelte now. Svelte only supports 94%, which is a crazy thing. And like, I never thought I'd kind of live to see the day where React has better support for web components than Svelte. Or even Polymer. Can you imagine that? React has better support for web components than Polymer, but I guess that's not a fair comparison. But you'll see with the new React beta, it's up to 100%. It's full on across the board support interoperability for web components. Okay, but then the question is, okay, like, how do we use it? What does this mean? So if you look at the current React beta documentation, there's a ton of stuff about the new hooks. Like, this is super exciting stuff. I don't want to diminish any of this. Like, I think this is really great stuff. I like the shift in focus to a lot of asynchronous type of like things, which React hasn't really been able to handle very well up until now. And obviously your React server component stuff. And then, if you go all the way down, this is the only mention of web components. So obviously web components, as mentioned, it's partially supported, but the main thing that wasn't supported was custom elements, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of web components. And here it effectively says, it supports custom elements. It says it adds full support, passes all tests. Past versions, it's been very difficult to use web components in React. I'll talk about that in a second. Even if you look at something like Stencil.js, they have like a dedicated like section where they basically just go over how to use. So Stencil.js is to generate web components to use between different frameworks, so you can have the same component that you can use between different frameworks. And they have, I think, a dedicated section. Oh, they have dedicated sections for all frameworks, but if you look at, for example, Angular. Oh, interesting. I thought the Angular one was going to be, well, if you look at the JavaScript one, it's super short. If you look at the Vue one, it's interesting. I thought the React one was going to be way longer. But, okay. Okay. So I think they just go into a lot of detail with all of these regardless. But the case stands that, even React himself acknowledges in past versions using custom elements in React has been difficult because React treats unrecognized props as attributes rather than properties. There you go. What does that mean? I'll unpack that a bit later. Here's a very cool thing. Like web component, not only is web components usable in React without jumping through several hoops now, but it actually is supported. It has supporting server-side rendering. So that means that we actually get something of React that you actually don't get with web components vanilla out of the box. There isn't a standardized way to do server-side rendering. So this is really cool. So React not only allows you to use web components, it gives you something extra that we're still trying to figure out vanilla with web components. Okay, so with all of that said, I just wanted to spend 2 minutes kind of setting the stage a bit, and then I'm going to jump into a demo and kind of show how to do this and so forth. Okay, sorry, it's just chaos on this side. All right. You might hear some noises in the background. The kids going wild. As mentioned, they just got home. So first and foremost, let me get to that fig jump file. Okay, so there's two things that are worth noting. And this is maybe a great interesting place to start any discussion. I maybe want to start with my own kind of journey with web components. And then I also want to chat super quickly about why no one in their right mind wants to talk about web components and React 19. Okay. Or at the very least, why anyone in their right mind want to actually talk about this as a good thing. If I kind of went to the endless source of nuanced and valuable discussion on anything tech related that is called Twitter, and I've got some stuff here. And I'll maybe just kind of very broadly searched for people talking about kind of this React 19 and web components, and I'll maybe also address some of these. So there's this one where someone asks, so we don't need stencil anymore. In fact, I'm maybe preempting some of the Q&A here, but I think some of these are good to discuss. So no, you still need stencil. Stencil generates the web components. Stencil doesn't actually handle the using of the web components in frameworks. This has nothing to do with actual creating web components. And I think also that's another thing as well. This doesn't mean, maybe make a note here because I think this is a source of confusion for a lot of people. This does not mean that React components are now web components. Okay, that's not the case here. All that this means is you can actually use web components in React now without basically hacking it into React. It's fully supported now. But that sounds minor, and it's not. It's a massive thing, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So then let me see if I can find another one. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, took yeah, it's good news. It's just, it took forever, but also, like you I don't know, like then like there's some people that are saying like, oh no, the new React changes are too much and it's changed for the sake of change and so forth. So you can't please everyone, I guess. I'm scared which. I'm just opening these on my other screen because I'm scared whether I'm going to get some tweets that are not family friendly in terms of what people said about this. So also this is a great one around synthetic events. Are synthetic events still a thing? So you don't get synthetic events with web components. In fact, if you think about it, and this is kind of like your React app, and everything React wise, and you have like a custom component here. Let's just call this Schalk example that you pull in, and you use it in between your React code. So let's just do like standard, like div 1, 2, 3, and let's also above that do like custom example, which let's do both of these self-closing. This is all within React world, but when everything inside of this is like a little, like especially if you're using the shadow DOM, like everything inside this component is not React. It is now you're in web component world. Interestingly enough, you can do slots, which I found is really neat. And I think, like, to the React team's credit, I think that would have been like reasonable for them to say, okay, we're not going to support slots. This is maybe just a first step, but yeah, actually, so that means that you can pass stuff as children, and you can have a slot, and then you're back in React world. Like, so you have almost like this composition of it coming through, which is really cool. And they're probably doing that by means of like portals or something similar. But in here, there's no synthetic events here. There's no, even this itself, React only treats this as a HTML element. Okay, so that means that literally it's as if you were to do video or whatever. React itself doesn't even know that there's stuff in here. It just treats it as an actual HTML node. And, so this video example is actually an example that gets used quite a ton to explain the shadow DOM, because I think a video web components shadow DOM, I think in Firefox, if you debug it in Firefox, it actually shows you the shadow DOM. I don't think it does so in... I don't think, yes. Here you go. I don't think it does so in Chrome, but if you have a native HTML video element, then I see your back, Justin. Oh, cool.
Yeah, Schalk, I just wanted to say you can turn on View Shadow DOM in Chrome.
Okay, so it's new. But does that count? But does that hold for native intrinsic?
Yes,
HTML
it does.
As well?
Okay,
cool.
Inputs, selects, checkboxes, video, audio,
okay.
Everything. Yeah.
Because I know when I did my web component talk at DevConf, like, that wasn't the case, and I had to spin up specifically Firefox to show this. Okay, but so effectively we already have built-in quote-unquote web components, and React just treats it as follows. According to React, it doesn't know what is inside video. It doesn't even know if there's anything inside video. It doesn't even know how the things inside video talk to one another. So synthetic events are still 100% a thing, but they're a thing in React world. In here, this is just like you can almost think about this as an iframe. It's the grossest example ever, but think about this as an iframe that you just put in React. Okay, so let's see. What else? I appreciate this one. Classes are back. Doon, doon, doon. I don't like classes. It's definitely, I wish that you could use web components with object literals or in a functional manner, but it is what it is. But hey, all right, now we're back in class land again. This is an interesting one. I'll maybe touch on this in the demo I do. Yeah, as mentioned, full support for server-side rendering. Yup, you better believe it. If you server-side render this stuff, it is going to spit it out as HTML for you. And I would assume it would hydrate this. But once again, it would hydrate it in the same way that it would hydrate like a video or whatever. It'll just treat it as an actual HTML node. So it's not going to handle like state stuff in here and whatever for you. And this one is like, all right, let's just do it live. I apologize in advance if there's anything with swear words or any obscenities about web components in any of these screenshots I took. But let's just do it this way. Okay, so this one is cool as well. I'll talk about this a bit, and I think this is one of the key things. Like, one of the things about web components is that adoption has been a bit low. Granted, this was said a while ago, but yeah. And I think this React integration is going to change it quite a bit. Can you use React to create web components? Yeah, this is not what this means. You can do it with third-party tools, but like this beta React 19 thing, this has nothing to do with creating web components in React. In fact, I don't even know if that's a good idea. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I guess you guys heard my daughter in the background going, oh no. Yeah, some more stuff about synthetic events. All right, so let's talk about, there's a lot of people asking like why not only is this important, but also why is this even a thing? Why would you want to do this? And it kind of feels saying that this is a good thing that React is supporting web components, like kind of celebrating that kind of is kind of you're kind of pissing people off, like people don't like React, which is like there's a really amazing one in here which I'll find in a second, and it's almost like they don't like the fact that, you know, like now web components are supported in React because they just don't like React. And then there are people who are like who kind of don't like the DOM and the web and the kind of native web component API, which I have a lot of sympathy for. I still think React components are a better way to create components. But like also web components have a lot of benefits to them, but in terms of just general developer experience and general readability and so forth, I do think React, but that with a caveat that React requires React and it requires third-party stuff. This one's great. This guy said using web components in React is like putting organic lettuce on a McDonald's burger. And I really appreciate the fact that Wes Boss commented on that and said, that sounds like an amazing idea. But like, yeah, so this is maybe the part where I switch over to the code stuff. But like, I think like this is also part of the misconception here is like web components aren't great, you know, like I think we're giving a bit too much credence here to the DOM. I don't have that quote ready at hand, but I know that in JavaScript, the good parts, maybe in the preface, Douglas Crockford said that in order to write a book called JavaScript, the good parts, he has to ignore that the DOM even exists. Like you won't be able to write a book about the good parts of JavaScript if you have to consider even the DOM, because the DOM sucks. I'm very like that's something I'm very open about. It's something that I like. I'm happy to officially state. Yeah, the DOM like is not great, and um, I think like that's one of the reasons why we have all these frameworks, because having something as simple as data reactivity in something that's as imperative as the DOM kind of is a pain without a third party library. And um, and I do think those web components, by means of extending the DOM, inherits a lot of those problems. So web components aren't that amazing at this point. I think there's a lot of potential, but there are a lot of benefits to web components that might mean that you might want to sacrifice that developer experience that you get for like by using a specific framework. And also there are abstractions to web components. Cool. So I said I want to talk about my own journey, but yeah, let's just dive straight into it. Okay, so what I want to do is, I think first and foremost, the first thing I need to show is how you would get sorry for the noises in the background. My daughter is going ballistic. She's playing with a painter in the background. Okay, so let me open up this. Don't read too much into the folder name. I literally just went and typed some random stuff on the keyboard. But let us spin up a basic Vite. I don't know this from memory. I'll have to go and look. Let's spin up a basic Vite implementation of React. And currently, there's no way to straight up install. What are the commands again? Create, npm create. Okay. Okay. I think just give me a second. I think I'm gonna come ask my wife to just take her. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so let's just do a basic JavaScript install and npm install. I don't think Vite installs the dependencies. Oh, actually, let me cancel that. And okay, sorry, my daughter. My wife came to fetch my daughter, so I'm also going to seem less distracted now as well. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go npm install. I think it's React at beta and React DOM at beta, and I think that's just going to replace our current package JSON version with the beta versions. You'll see that it's still React 18. So once that's finished, it should give us React 19 beta. Okay. All right. So let's have a quick look now. And I'm looking at the types. Okay, cool. You'll see it gave us the latest version. But yeah, this is still beta. So all the general caveats apply. And let me just also get rid of all the fluff that comes along, like the CSS and whatever, and so we can just focus on the bare bones like stuff here. So let's say our app over here and main. All of this looks good. And so let's do npm run. Sorry, it's npm run dev in Vite. Okay, cool. Here we go. And we probably need to put something in our app. Let's do return div123, and here's our amazing Vite app. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, so it's working. So now what I want to do is I want to quickly show you how I would just create a web component. And let me just create a different folder here for my web component. So let's do web component. All right. And web components. And let's go Schalk example. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much into how to create a web component, what a web component is. As mentioned, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube you can find that express it way more elegantly than I do. If you want to get into web components, I think a really good starting point is I think my first starting point was what's it? I think it's on CSS Tricks. Web components are easier than you think. Yes, yeah, well, this is pretty great. A pretty simple introduction without getting bogged down into a lot of the technical stuff. If you want more of the technical stuff, you can always go MDN, web components. There's a lot of great stuff there. Or you can just go and watch my DevConf talk, web components. Search for web components, Schalk Venter. Let's see. Yeah, here's a older one I did 2 years ago. Yes, here's the one I did at DevConf. You can just watch that one if you want. Okay, so let's get back into it. So just quickly, one thing worth mentioning is that web components always need to have dashes in their names. That is the way to future-proof your stuff. So any HTML element, so you have like div or you have like a p tag or whatever. At the moment, there it's thanks Autopilot. Let me also just turn off Autopilot. Disable completions. The agreement is with the W3C is that they will never add anything with a dash. So that way you're future-proofing your your actual web components by adding a dash, because then they'll never add like this type of thing tomorrow. So it'll never conflict with anything in the native specification. Okay, so let's quickly create the most basic web component possible. So you have to do that via classes, and that's because you extend native HTML elements. So let's just call it Pascal case version of the actual name, not my name and surname, but Schalk example. Okay, and we extends HTML element. Okay, there is a web component. Okay, it might not look like much. Let's just do a basic constructor that just calls super. Okay. And that is just because, whatever gets called in the HTML element constructor then also gets called. If you're not familiar with classes, maybe go a bit read up a bit about JavaScript classes to understand some of the stuff I'm doing now, because it's very specific to JavaScript classes. For those of you who have started using React, like post hooks and so forth. Back in the day, we also used to write React with classes. But so if you've only used hooks and you're new to web development, you might not be that familiar with React classes, JavaScript classes. So okay, cool. Here's our most basic web component, and now what we need to do is we need to register it. So you do that by going. It's on the window. You don't have to do window, like anything with the window, you can just write it directly, but I like to do this just for explicitness. And you go custom elements and you do define. Okay. And then you basically say, okay, what HTML tag name do you want for this thing? And we'll just do Schalk example. And then you pass it the class that should be used to as the constructor for this. There we go. We've just created a web component, and we should be able to use it in React by just importing this file. Okay. One thing that I do like to do is to actually just export the tag name itself, so that I can just import the component in the same way I do with my React component. So I would just go const, and let's just call it, apologies if you guys are hearing my daughter in the background. I just call it like tag name and Schalk example, and then I just export that as the default as well. I just kind of like the developer experience of being able to then go import, from my web components. Let's just say, Schalk. Actually, I can't do that because it has a dash in it. All right. Like maybe when I add a TypeScript just from pure habit, it should actually be JavaScript, and I'm actually preempting the TypeScript stuff a bit here. Sorry. So okay, just make it plain JavaScript, Schalk example, and don't do the exporting thing. I'm going to touch on that in a second. But here we go. There's a web component. It doesn't do anything, but it is a web component, and we can use it. So because we're only registering the file, like we're not exporting anything, we're literally just creating the component and registering it in the DOM, we can literally just import the file. Okay, web components, and we just import that. Okay, and now we have it available. So if we go here, div, let's keep our div 123 here, div 123, and let's also do div 456, and then in between that, let's do Schalk example. Let's make it self-closing. Okay, there you go. So this is a web component. It's not a custom React component. It's not Pascal case. This is how a custom React component would look. It is just a pure HTML web component. So now let me see. This is still running. I don't know what the port is that Vite runs on. There you go. It's always some weird number. Okay, cool. Here we go. And let me open this on the side here. It doesn't do anything, but rightfully so, because we actually haven't told it to do anything. So let me just create a quick web component that does something at the very least. So most basic thing we can do is, so on the connected callback, so this is just, this fires when the web component actually mounts. Okay. And another thing is, I just want to attach the shadow DOM. I usually just call it inner, and I do this shadow root, and I just say mode is closed. Okay, I don't get like auto completion. Okay, and then I treat that as, I spoke about thinking about this as an iframe, almost like it's that little piece of DOM in that iframe that's in this component. That's the shadow root. So no CSS, well, some CSS, but in general, most things, the JavaScript can't reach into this in the same way that example that I showed of Firefox. You can't go into the video player and be like, okay, get this thing, whatever. It's complete. It's a closed shadow root, so you can't go into it in the same way. You can't, like in React, go into this thing and fetch something. And you can also, so you determine the interface basically. So then all that we do is, in this thing, let's set our inner HTML. And I have an extension called ES6 string HTML, I think it's called. Yes, this ES6 string HTML, which is really neat, especially if I'm doing like Angular work or lit work or whatever, where if you have a template literal, you just prefix it with like HTML and you'll get syntax highlighting. So this is just a nice quality of life thing. whenever you're putting any HTML in a string in JavaScript. So if I go, for example, div 098, I get syntax highlighting. If I don't, then it just presents it as a regular string. All right, and let's have a look. So this inner HTML div 098, and if I reload, it should actually show up. So let's first figure out why it's not working. Is it not working because there's an error? And yes, this shadow root is not a function. Okay. For anyone that might have been screaming at me, it's actually add. I think it's add shadow, or let me just see. Add shadow. I can't remember now. Let's add shadow DOM. You see, Justin, if you get the answer before me, let me know. Attach shadow. There we go. All right, that should fix it. And there we go. 1, 2, 3. So we have an amazing component that, if you call it, it just spits that out. Okay. Yeah, this is like the hello world of web components. But you probably want some interactivity here. Maybe you don't. Maybe this is all you want. Let me also show that you can also import like shoelace or whatever as well. So or maybe show how you can use third party. And I think this is the big appeal of web components in React, is you can actually use some third party web components now in React very easily. So if we look at, so shoelace is kind of a well-known one, a library kind of like probably still has the old documentation, but like let's actually quickly install it and I'll show you how. So I'm curious, it probably has the old documentation, which is more convoluted. Yes. Okay. I'll maybe show in a second. Oh, what is going on here? Oh, it's because Vite is running. How you can more easily just import this now and use it. Okay. Another well-known one is what is it called? Spectrum, is it not? Is it Adobe Spectrum Web Components? I think it's called Spectrum. Yes. So Adobe also has like lots of web components that you can use. Varden is a really great one. And so now what you can actually do is, if you go and look at Varden or whatever, and you want to use their specific date picker or whatever, they have some really nice like elements. So let's say I want to use this one, it's as easy as just popping it into, like importing it into React, and then you just call it as if it's a native HTML element like this. Okay, shoelace is probably done. Yep. So let's spin that up again. Let's see if I can super quickly get shoelace working as well. So SL button. So I don't want to. So now it has very specific like React steps you need to follow in the instructions here. But now I should just, with the beta, I should just be able to use it in the same way you would use it in regular JavaScript. So let's have a look. So if I want to import it, cherry picking, bundling, button, input. Sure, let's just grab that one. So let's do that straight in here. And let me just look at the input. I'm looking at I'm looking at the Varden documentation. Geez, so many tabs. Okay, I lost it now, but let's just go back to shoelace input. I just want to see an example of, okay, cool. So this should work now. Let's double check. Doesn't seem that way. Probably some CSS I need to import as well. Although this is actually working. Yes, it's just some CSS that's needed because see, it does the input and all of that, which I don't have. Let's just quickly see with the installation. Specifically with, yes, okay, so I probably need to pull in that theme as well. And you can obviously just pull this into your main blade. Yeah, there we go. Check this out. Hey, shoelace straight up in React. Huh? Check this out, guys. How cool is this? All right. So I'm not going to show any more, but you can probably take it from there and play around. And like I cannot get over this. Like, how cool is this? You literally just go import this thing and use it as if it's a piece of HTML. There you go. Okay, so now I want to quickly chat about interactivity. So this is a very basic example. I'm just going to remove the shoelace stuff super quickly and just get back to my own one that I'm importing. And okay, so let's say in my web component, I want an input. So and let's do, here's a cool idea. I actually don't apply. I'm thinking this, like, I'm doing this as I go, guys. Let's say, let's just call this colorize. Okay. Colorize. Oh, this is, I don't know if we're making it worse now or we're heading in a good direction. But another thing as well, one thing that you will see at the moment is that you obviously need to, the hot module reloading isn't working 100%, and that is because you're no longer in React land. So if I do that and I save this file, obviously React, like this isn't, it's technically an HTML element I'm pulling into React. So React only listens for actual React renders. So only if I change, oh, I think I broke my hot module reloading because it should have changed, but okay, regardless, I need to reload it. I think I actually just broke my hot module reloading. I actually don't know if it works correctly. Okay, so let's make a nice React block over here, and let's just do some straight up inline styling and do height. Let's do 2, let's do 5 rem, and sorry, it's hard working at such a zoomed in level that it's clear on the video. So obviously not used to working at this level. Okay, and let's just do background, and let's just start it as gray. Okay, but let's say you want to enter anything in here. You want to say red and apply that. And remember, this is from the web component. Okay, so let's just use our state in here. So let's do import, and let's do, sorry, talking and coding at the same time. It's hard. Let's just say, you know, color, and let's set color. And let me give this a South African version, and yeah, let's do that. Okay. Okay. And gray. Okay. Okay, there we go. Set color. And so obviously this still works as you would expect. Let's just do a quick button here that updates it to just confirm that it works. So on click, and set color, and let's just thank you, autocomplete. Change. Okay, so this works. Okay, I've just confirmed that React still works the way it should. But what if we want to actually, like from here, so let's I'm wondering whether I should. Okay, let's just go straight into the component. I was wondering now whether I should talk a bit a higher level, but let's just get straight into it. Okay, cool. So we render this, and remember we are in imperative land here, so no set states, any of that nonsense. You are working in the DOM now as if React doesn't exist. So what we'll probably need to do is I would probably track locally in here the color, and I assume you would pass that through. So I would pass through this exact value. Okay, like that. And then how I would get it in here is I would, well, let's just first check if it gets passed through. So console log this color, and it should say gray. Oops. Let me just see what's going on here. Failed to execute the fine. Name has already been used. Okay. Okay. So it says it's undefined, so it's not picking it up. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, yes. So when it gets passed initially, so this is where the React abstraction bit comes in. And where the React team had to make some calls in terms of how this is going to work, because obviously React doesn't have this concept of attributes, because like React is only in memory. There is no HTML. It's only JSX. Okay, it does the create element thing under the hood. So because React doesn't have a concept of attributes, where do actual DOM attribute, where does web component attributes fit in? And so what they decided, once again, like this is what I'm inferring because there isn't official documentation on this, but this is what I've been able to figure out by reverse engineering some stuff, is when it first gets rendered, it gets applied as an attribute. When you update it, it gets applied as a property update. So what that means is that when you want to get it the first time, you need to say this get attribute color. If I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay, cool. But so now the thing is, what you'll see is and then what we can do is let's pass that as a value to, see, I'm out of habit doing the React stuff, but remember, this is not React land anymore. So this is a template literal, but that does mean that we can just interpolate it like this. And let's just do const color and this attribute color and color. All right, let's refresh. There we go, gray. Okay, but so now obviously the thing is that if we now update it, and let me bring this back, we update it, so change, obviously in React land it changed, but it's not passing it through to the web component. And the reason being because this is an attribute. You know, it's rendered. I'd be curious to see what it actually is in the DOM. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it does actually, I didn't know this. Well, we're discovering this together. So it does actually update it here. I didn't realize it updates the attributes. Hey, check this out. Okay, so what we can do is we can actually listen for attribute changes. So the way I would have done it is with the getter and setter. I'm curious. I think it does both. It passes it as a property and it sets the attribute. So let me just do a setter. Let's just say get. Let's just do get color quickly, and let's just say return blue. It's going to change this behavior. No, it's actually not going to change this behavior. But let's just put in the. Let's just force it to be blue for now, and let's say set color. And value, and let's console log that. Console log from setter and value, and I'm curious now whether it is going to. Yeah, check this out. Okay, so this is very interesting. Okay, so it sets both the attribute and the property. So you can decide which. And the reason why I didn't know this is because there has been a lot of discussion on how to integrate custom elements into React. There's a lot of documents floating out there. I think I have a version of it here. Let me just see if I can find it. Yes. So there's a couple of proposals and stuff floating around from the React team in terms of. So if you dig a bit, the React team is pretty open in terms of their own discussion, in terms of why they make certain decisions, what are some considerations they're taking, and so forth. So most of these, if you look in specific issues on the GitHub repo, you'll find links to some of these documents. So the initial proposal that I would assume this is now the finalization of this proposal. There were some questions about attributes. I'll put some links into these if you want to read them. And what's very interesting is they kind of used Preact quite a bit as a reference point for how to do web components with JSX, which is very interesting. And they're very open about, we want to integrate custom elements in the way that Preact does it. And if you look at the actual document, there's a lot of big names actually commenting. I know obviously you can't see this now because this was exported from a Google Doc, but there's a couple of comments by even Alex Russell and so forth on here, which is very interesting. Cool. Okay, I see that Justin found it and he just shared it. Okay, cool. But yeah, there was some question here about whether you should actually change the attributes, because the thing is that there are some performance implications, because effectively if you're changing the attribute on an element, you're re-rendering it, so it might cause unnecessary re-renders. But interesting, it seems like they did actually decide to go for it. And all right, so we can actually listen for attribute changes, or we can listen by means of setters and getters. So let's actually listen for attribute changes. So let me just, I don't know this off the top of my head. Listen for attribute changes, web components. I don't work enough with web components at such a low level. When I do, I use something like stencil or lit or so forth. What is going on here? Isn't there a way to do it, or is that a lit specific thing? What on earth? Justin, is it attribute changed callback? I'm going to do it, guys. I'm going to rely on Reddit for coding advice. Oh no. Let's see what happens. Oh geez.
Attribute change callback is what you are looking for. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, great. Okay, I have confirmation from someone that's not on Reddit. Let me just see. So I think it takes the previous state and the yes. So it's very much like how
Yeah.
should
Sorry.
update or yes.
No, I was just going to say exactly what you saw, what you found.
Yeah, it's the way that React used to work as well with classes. Where you could check if something should re-render. So let's just say if the name is color, then and the old value is not the same as the new value, and the old value is not the same as the new value, then go into this thing. So this, once again, we're in imperative land. There's no like re-render or whatever. You have to manually go into that HTML and do what you want to do. So let's query selector and let's put on that input, let's just put an ID and let's just say, this is one thing I just want to say. This is one thing that's really cool about the Shadow DOM, because it's kind of encapsulated from everything else. You can go wild. You can even just say get an input. You don't have to do any of the fancy like data attributes or IDs or whatever. You can actually just go input, because there's only one input in this context, and because it's completely encapsulated, I can just simply do this, which feels so weird and gross, but yeah, there you go. There's only one, and it's going to find it for me. So let's just say this is the element, and then what we want to do is we just want to set the element value to the new value. All right, I did a lot of work here, which I hope is going to work, but let's see. Change. Oh, and it didn't. Okay, let's console log and see what's going on here. I don't want to get too stuck on this. I'll move on if I don't get it right immediately. See, the hot module reload is messing a bit with this here, because what's very interesting is if I make changes, so it does actually break the hot module reloading, because now it imports the same stuff again, which means it tries to define the React attribute again. So it tries to run this again. So just off the top of my head, there's probably two ways around it. The one is just to check if it has already been registered and only register it if it hasn't been registered. I do also think if you import this at the main level instead, it's obviously, because this is outside of the React renders, it's not going to trigger it again. So the hot module reloading is not going to trigger it again. Yeah, and that's also why we got that null thing. So you can put it in here in your main outside of React, or you can just have a condition here where you check. There's a way to check what has been registered. So custom elements, and I think it's get, and I think you can just get Schalk elements, see if it has been registered. Okay, so now if we go and we say change, all right, so it's still not pulling through, and it's actually not even showing here. Well, it's not even registering the attribute change callback. So that maybe makes me wonder, unless I missed anything. If I missed anything, like I'll probably only realize it when rewatching this video. My
Schalk,
guess is yes.
I may be completely off base here, not being super au fait with web components, but does your closed mode have anything to do with this?
No.
If you're changing via
so
that,
closed mode is only about actually reaching into the component from outside.
Okay.
I do think there's something that you need to tell it which attributes to listen to as a performance thing. It doesn't automatically listen to everything, because in HTML there's millions and millions of attributes. Now that I'm thinking of it, so let me just go. I think there's something where you need to set static observed attributes. All right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to tell it first it doesn't automatically listen to everything, which would also mean we probably don't need to check the name here because there's only one thing that can trigger it. But hey, look at that. Cool. So this is literally coming from outside of the component. We're literally binding our state to this color thing that we're sending to the component. And then in the web component itself, and this isn't like some weird React magic here. If I were to use this web component in just a regular HTML file, it would work exactly the same way. To maybe show that point, let me just quickly spin up a code pen where I just copy and paste this. So all this, like this is my Feds account. So all this like stuff that we did right now, this is nothing React specific. There's nothing React happening in this file. This is plain web component stuff. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is super quickly just show. Okay, CodePen is taking a while to load, but yeah, like this is just plain JavaScript, and you can then use it as if it's HTML. I'm wondering now whether no, like let's just continue with the React stuff. So okay, then the thing is like, but now obviously one thing though is this change is all fine and good, but this is in React. We want to actually fire this from that, and possibly let's do on color change or whatever. Okay, and pass the set color to that, but let's just console log whatever that was. Okay, but obviously on color change doesn't exist yet. So how do we fire up? And this is where things get interesting because React uses synthetic events, and it also means you also pass events down as callbacks. But because for all intents and purposes, this is a DOM node, if you do on click, that should work because according to React, this is just like a basic DOM node. So when I click that, but obviously, so it's the same as if this was a div or whatever. But I obviously now want a custom event. And so how do I set that up? So if I go in here, and what I can do is, let me just quickly see. Let's actually make this a form. Well, I don't know how I feel about that. Okay, but let's just bind to this. Remember, you can't go on click here because you're no longer in React land. So what we would do is after this gets, connected, I would go once again and query selector, and we can just do button again because there's only one button. And let's add an event listener. And this is one thing that I didn't realize initially, just FYI as a public service announcement. I used to go disconnected callback all the time, and I would actually then unregister all my event listeners when the component unmounts, like in the way you would do in React or whatever. But actually, most browsers, if the web component gets unmounted, like it automatically gets rid of all event listeners in it. So just an FYI, you don't have to clean up all your event listeners when the component unmounts, the web component. The browser does that automatically. Not the case for React, but the case for web components. So let's say add event listener, and we want to have an event listener for click. Should probably be like a submit or whatever, but like the chance to write semantic HTML is long. That boat has sailed. So we're going with this now. And so what we would do is, if that happens, then we just get the value of the input. And let's just say const value. And then what we want to do is we want to submit a query selector input value. And then what we want to do is we want to submit that as a custom event. Okay, so we can create our custom event right in here, and let's just say, let's just call it payload. New custom event. There is a difference between custom events and just regular events. Apart from semantically, just like the semantic difference between custom events and regular events, but generally just use custom events. They allow you to actually add details and stuff and control them a bit better. And let's just say, so what did we do over here? What we said, color change. Okay, so that's the name of our event, and we just need to pass some things for it. So do we want it to bubble in the DOM? Sure, yeah. This is important. If it needs to be composed if you want it to go through the shadow DOM. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to go through the shadow DOM. And then we just say this. Okay, and this being the component now. Yes. Dispatch event and payload. Okay. Oh, yeah. And we obviously want to actually send the value. And we can just do that. Okay, as detail. And let's have a look. Okay, so now if I didn't mess up anything, setting value cannot set properties of null. Okay, and that is because query selector input value is it not finding that. Why would it not find it? Wait, but it can't be that because I haven't called it yet. Attribute changed callback. Guess it's actually from here. Name cannot set properties of null. Setting value. Element value. Okay. So we also just need to check if the okay. All right. So it's trying to do this. So we can just say if the element doesn't exist. So it's unhappy because it's trying to set before the component has mounted. That's okay. Okay, so we just say just stop. Okay, so let's do blue, apply. Hey, and check this. All right, so this has picked up our custom. So here's what's interesting. Anything that you prepend with on registers an event listener on that thing. Okay, but it can be whatever you call that custom event. And here's the kicker. It doesn't even need to be camel cased like React. You can go like, I don't know, let's do hello on hello like that. Okay, then it just listens for hello. Okay, and so if I just call my event here hello, then it should still pick it up. Let's see. Yeah, check that out. Okay, so you can anything, you can go. This is such a. If you've been working with React for a long time, this is such a mind. It just messes with your mind. You can do that or whatever, but let's just keep it consistent with kind of React syntax and say color change. But basically, anything that goes after on is the name of the custom event. Okay, and so we probably just need to from that get the detail, I think. Let's just console log the detail. And let's see, blue. Okay, it's not happy. Let's try blue. Oh, I changed it to. Did I not? Yeah, I changed it to hello. That's why. Okay, blue. Yay, check this out. Okay, cool. So now we just grab that and set color. Okay, check this out. So let's go green, apply. Hey, check this. Man, like this is this is insane. I can't get over this. Like, so this is all happening in our component. So just give me a second. That's a killer. My daughter's looking for a dummy. I think she left it here somewhere. Oh, okay. It's one of those nights. All right. Okay, let's get back into it. But yeah. Okay. So, and likewise, you can also change it in React and feed it back into the web component. Okay. So that's, this should give you enough to actually kind of build more complex things and so forth. I just quickly want to chat about TypeScript, because things get interesting when we get to the world of TypeScript. So I was hoping there would be more discussion tonight on the implications of this, and we can maybe do a follow-up talk. I think going through the implementation details of it, it took a bit longer than I anticipated. But I'd rather do that. I'd rather only do the how to do it part, and then maybe at a future date talk about the implications of the fact that you can do this. So npm, sorry, no, what was the Vite one? I'm going to try and do it from memory. npm create Vite at latest, and I think, am I right? Oh, yes. Okay. So let's do React, and let's do React and TypeScript. Okay. And exact same thing. It currently says React and React DOM 18. So we want to do npm install React beta and React DOM beta. Okay. So, and let me also just clear all of this stuff while I am busy with that. Function app, and let me just also clear this out just to get a basic working version. And let's see. So now if we do npm run dev. Oh, it's trying to import the CSS. CSS. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's see. Just I can never remember the port offhand. It's this weird number. Okay, cool. There we go. All right, so this is working. And let us bring in our web component. So let's do source, and let's just do web components. You can call this anything you want. This is just a folder. Where is my other one? Okay, cool. And we can also just chuck it in a TypeScript file now. So let's just call it Schalk Example TS and throw it in a TypeScript file. And already it's unhappy about some things. It's unhappy about, this stuff. I'm just gonna do the naughty thing, and actually I know what these should be. There we go. Wanted to make it any. This is unhappy because object is possibly null, and we can just solve that by getting the element first and checking. We know the element is gonna exist, but TypeScript obviously can't say that for certain. So element is assigned a value but never used. Yeah, but I'm about to use it. It can't determine that as a fact, so it's unhappy. So we just wanted to let's just tell it to throw an error if it can't. Okay. Element missing. So at the very least, it's happy now insofar that it knows that that insofar that it knows that if it can't reach this point because it'll throw an error, like if it reaches this point, there is an element. And probably let's do the same for the input as well. So if either of these, yeah. And this is one of the things I like about static typing, is that it actually forces you to write more quote unquote correct code. Yeah. Let's leave that. It's fine if value is. Okay, so all of this is still fine. All right. Okay, and Schalk example, and here we go. All right, so let's pull in import just a Schalk example here. We can just import it directly. Web component and Schalk example TS, and then we should be able to use it. Okay, so let me just grab my previous code. Yeah, let's just copy it exactly as is. And so what's going on here? Okay, so it's unhappy, and it's unhappy because it tells you that there is no JSX intrinsic element called Schalk example. Okay, so this is a TypeScript thing. This isn't a React thing. It's just like TypeScript's probably gonna, or I don't know what's gonna happen here. TypeScript's probably gonna. I actually don't know what's gonna happen here. Or React is gonna, or it's gonna be baked into Vite or something. I don't know. But at the moment, React works on the assumption that the only lowercase things you ever use are actual regular HTML stuff. So if you do, for example, video like that for a video component, TypeScript assumes, oh, you made a typo, and rightfully so. Like that thing doesn't exist. So, you fix the typo. Okay. So it obviously, it's like this isn't an HTML element. And obviously Schalk example isn't an HTML element. So there are a couple of ways to do this. Like you can go into some people create their own like declaration, TypeScript declaration files, and kind of declare it, in this way where you go like, I think you have to do namespace, JSX, and then you extend it, with your own interfaces and whatever. I tend to just do it. I like to do it in the component itself because, like like another thing as well is to just suppress that. But like I like the fact that if I type div with 2 V's, it gives me an error. So what I instead do is I actually export the name of the component as if it's a component. And let me show you how I do this. So what I would do is I would just export, let's just say export const, and let's just call it like, component or whatever, or let's just call it, I don't think you can do Schalk example because it's already a class. So I think it's going to conflict with that. Yes, duplicate identifier. So let's just call it component. And just, Schalk, it's just a string. Okay, let's just export that. And let's also just make it the default export. Okay. All right. So that means that this is where this part comes in that I showed earlier. So what I would then do is I would actually import that as if it's a React component. Okay. Remember, this is just a string. Okay. Schalk example. It's unhappy because I have the TS at the end and because I'm not using it. Okay. Remember, this is just a string. So that means if I put it there, it's just a string. In the same way that I can go no, and do div, and then use that instead of the name div. Okay, and it's actually smart enough to infer that whatever string, okay, because like custom elements and intrinsic things are just strings. Okay, you're not passing a function in the way, like, remember, this is all just create element. This is just create element under the hood. Okay, and you would just pass a string to that, or you would pass an actual custom component as a function. Okay, so just React create element under the hood. This is all that happens. So what I do is I export it as a string, and then, okay, so it's still unhappy, and it is unhappy because it still knows it's a string, and it's like, haha, I got you. This is not a valid thing. So if I change that to div, it's going to be happy. Okay. So see, now it's happy, but it says there's no such thing as color on div. So what you can do is you can just say as any. Okay. Okay, it's just the ESLint ruling. You can probably just go ESLint disable next line, But like if you set it as any, that's fine. Okay, but we can do better than that. And it would be really cool if we can actually still get, like our properties and stuff. So what we do is we tell TypeScript to pretend like it's an actual React component. So from React, we just import FC, which is just the interface for a function component. And we just tell it as if it's a function component. Obviously, it's unhappy because as a kind of measure for you to accidentally like completely set something to something else in React, as kind of a bit of a security measure against that in TypeScript, like there needs to be some type of overlap. You need to be narrowing more often than not. You need to be widening or narrowing the type. You can't just completely set it to something different. So a way to get around that is to set it to unknown first. So you take Schalk example, you set it to unknown. So okay, set it to I don't know what this is. And then after you do that, set it to, because technically unknown is like base all types, okay, including function components. All right. So, and then what we can further do is we can actually just set our props, pass our props to that. So let's just do type props. And what was it? It was exam color, which is a string, and on color change, which is just a new value. No, sorry, it's a event, so it's detail and a string. And let's just call this event. You can probably do like an actual, let's just do it more correctly. So let's just do, custom event. You can probably pass a generic to it or something. But yeah, I'm just going to do it for now like that. That's all we care about. So we can pretend like there isn't anything else. All right. So props, and then, yeah, you just pass that to this, and there you go. Now it's pretending as if the string is a function component with this props. You can even put it directly in there if you want, like that. And check this out. So now we get all of this over here. So there. Hey, did you mean color? Okay. Hey, it's expecting on-color change. So now you're importing it and you're using it as if it's a React component. According to TypeScript, this is a React component. And let's have two of these, let's do two of these where you can, and I think this may be a good example because now it's going to show you how does the data binding. So let's do two of these. Okay. And when you edit any either of these, it should obviously, because it uses this shared state, it should update accordingly. And let me just start again, because I obviously for the life of me can't remember this. But why did it just do one now? Oh no, it's this thing. And let's just give it a bit of a, let's just put an HR between it or something. And let's test it. So I'm just talking theoretically here. It should work. It's going to be embarrassing if it doesn't. Maybe not as embarrassing as me not getting to the tab again. There we go. So let's try this out. Red. Oh, it is embarrassing and it doesn't work. Why is it not working? Let's see if I can figure out why. So if I do only one color, and I am defining it, and it is Schalk example, Schalk example, Schalk example. What am I missing? Just close all of this. Oops. Might close the stream. Let's see if we can figure out. Wait. Let me try again. Okay. Oh. Okay. Something funky going on here. Why is this not working? In theory, it should work. Let me try and figure out what I'm missing here. So, app color. Let me see if it does change the, if it changes the attribute. What am I missing? Unless, but I got this working earlier. What am I missing? Unless React strips it out, but I don't think it does. And I had an example where I did something similar earlier. Let's see if I can find that example. I think this one is working. Let's see. This is a similar super contrived example. Yeah. Hello world, click me and change. Yeah. This is okay. I'll have a look at it. And anyway, I'm going to share this code. So maybe I pick up what I missed. But here I do the exact same thing. Custom elements, define. Yeah, beats me. I don't know. It can't possibly be this. It's interesting. It renders it, but it doesn't seem to bind it. Okay, I'm going to push this code anyway, and I will see if I can find the issue and fix it there. Yeah, that was it. It was quite a bit. So let me just, I don't. Let's maybe see if we can do 10 minutes of Q&A. Yeah, let's do 15 minutes. I don't want to be taking too much time because, as I mentioned, the family just came back today. So,
sure.
But yeah, let's do 15 minutes. So if anyone has any specific questions, you can just pop them in the text chat for me. Otherwise, Justin, you probably have some questions.
Yeah, I have a few. If anyone has
Yeah.
any, just pop them in the text and we'll bring them up.
Mm.
Yeah, so do you see any sorry, a good time to cough.
Yes, you've been holding that one in all this time. Waiting for the right moment.
I mean, for me, this is like a big step for React. I think you will
Yes.
agree.
And it's yes. Sorry, complete it before I answer.
I think this is a discussion. I only glanced at it that happened on the ZA Tech today about kind of the parity that we're seeing amongst front-end frameworks, where they are less, you know, things seem to be coming together in a big way, and I think web components in React is a big part of that. Yeah.
Yes. Let me bring that actual discussion up.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I do think it's not related to this at all, but it's actually very topical. Yeah, you can continue your question.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, there's a lot of benefits with being able to use web components in React. We have like interoperability is just a massive thing straight out of the box. Yeah, because we've got you know, web components as part of the, you know, the official spec. They're not going to go away. They're not going anywhere, and they're not dependent on anything. They're just part of browser APIs now, which is great.
Yes.
And we have true encapsulation with a shadow DOM, yeah. Which yeah. And of course, if you've got some like legacy code, third-party components, etc., it's very much easier now to integrate them into a React application via a web component than you know. I mean, I've torn my hair out trying to get a non-React you know, like date picker or something working in React.
any type of like if you want to do any type of non-React thing, and yes, and there's a reason for that.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But it seems now we can leverage like the strengths of both things in the same application, which I think is a really great thing. Now I think, well, maybe not so much, but web components do also have their problems, right?
No, a lot. And I think like this is one of the big. I think people who are like what would be the word, like doing a lot of web component evangelization. My Afrikaans is holding my back here. Really like pushing for it. I think they're doing themselves a big favor, a big disservice by not being honest about there are some severe problems with web components at this point. I'll name two big ones that are the ones that prevent me from using web components, and then I'll maybe talk about why did we do a session on web components when there are massive problems with them. Okay, so the big ones is accessibility. Because all accessibility tooling and screen readers and whatever have been built with a specific, over the years, over the last 2-3 decades, with the DOM as working in a specific way, and the relationship between things in the DOM being in a specific manner. And web components, or the shadow DOM, completely is a very radical approach to like how the DOM actually works. Like the DOM was global up until we had the shadow DOM, you know. So like because of that has a lot of implications in terms of accessibility, because you can't access the component from outside programmatically, which is good. You want encapsulation, but now you're also interfering with the ability of certain tooling to actually interface with the component from outside as well. And now a lot of things in the DOM itself that also relied on this global nature of the DOM also don't work anymore. A good example being that in HTML, you can have a button and you can say form, I think, as an attribute, and you can actually configure a specific form it should submit. I might get it wrong. It might be submit or form, but I think it's form is the attribute's name. So you can trigger a form submission from any button from anywhere in HTML. This is really great. Yeah, this is really great when you have like your actual button to submit a form or something like floating or whatever. You get this a lot where like you kind of have like an input, you have like edits that you scroll down, there's like a floating save button or something, and because you can submit that form from anywhere. Obviously now that doesn't work with the shadow DOM anymore, because so this is an example. There are lots of these, just a lot of accessibility considerations. That being said, like they are being actively worked on. They're being actively worked on by a lot of really, really smart people. And this is a solvable problem. And I think, like, that being said, like, this is a hot take, but I think accessibility is in such a sad state at the moment that chances are that like most people out there, like their real reason for not using web components is not going to be because of accessibility. Like it's not going to be that most people, their site is just amazing from accessibility perspective, and they're like, oh, web components are going to come and ruin this now, this perfect accessibility score that I have, you know. So is that, but like also it is something that's being worked on actively. So and the other one being server-side rendering, serialization. At this point, there's no standardized way to serialize a web component. And by serialization, what I mean is like to turn it into actual HTML that can be sent to the browser. There are a couple of ways that this like can be done. So almost want to say Hayden Pickering, Zach Leatherman. He like with the, I think it's called like, I can't remember what it's, WC something, his whole web component thing that also plays with 11T.
With 11T,
Yes, it all by definition, obviously because of the static site generation, it does serialization or whatever, but that's not something that's standardized in web components. It's a specific Zach Leatherman flavor of doing it. The same for lit, the same for, you know, a lot of like at the moment, it's kind of in a place where React was a couple of years ago. That's changed now with server components insofar that everyone just serialized React components. And no, actually, that's not true. There was an actual serialization, a standardized way to serialize React, but yeah, like that's actually not true. But the point being that, like, you know, people do create the server-side HTML stuff from web components. Like, there's no standardized way to do that, and to me, that's something that's definitely holding it back. Web components quite a bit. One thing though is with React, if you put your web component in React, like I just did right now, you get serialization out of the box for free, just because like of the React serialization, it's built in. So those are the two big things that are, but there is a lot of benefit. I think despite that, interop, as you mentioned, most people work on projects that only have a single framework. But once you start working at a specific scale, you might have a piece of your app that is in Angular. You might have another piece or another service, like your checkout flow might be in like whatever, might be in like might be in Laravel or whatever.
Yeah.
Might not even be a JavaScript thing. Like and the thing is, web components, you can use them seamlessly across any framework.
Yes.
Or even any language, because they are just plain HTML elements. You can pull them in as if they are in the browser. So if you have something, so here's a good example. You might have your marketing stuff and like all your customer facing stuff in WordPress, and then you might have your actual SaaS product that you're building for that, like be like Next or whatever, and this allows you to use the same component in your WordPress, and like there's only one source of truth. So that's cool. So yes. Sorry, I can't even remember what the question was there. I got all sidelined.
Drawbacks to web components.
Yes.
I mean, I know we're talking about web components in React, but so I don't want to go into like these are all the things that are bad that might be bad with web components. But one thing I do want to just touch on, and it's something that you didn't really cover, which fair enough, not part of what you were doing, but that's around styling in CSS. So I mean, great encapsulation of your styles to your component in Shadow DOM. Lovely. Styles can't leak out of that. Something we've wanted for a very long time, but styles also can't get in, right? Am I correct in that way?
Yes. Well, in styles that are not inheritable. So inheritable styles. So things like font family, text, those type of things can't go in. Can go in anything because once again, a web component is just a plain HTML element according to the browser. So anything that can get inherited by HTML elements, but something like I don't know, like a global selector or anything, can't reach into the component. Yes.
So would that apply to like custom properties, variables, some things
custom,
like setting colors on roots?
So this is really cool. Custom properties actually can pierce the shadow DOM. So that's really cool. And not only that, you can set custom properties on a web component. So you can actually, specify. That's really cool. So you can have a specific custom property that gets exposed by. Sorry, I didn't touch on styling, but like that's not a React specific thing. It's general to web components, but like this is like also a super interesting discussion. You can actually, like, if you have a custom like toggle or whatever, and you want like foreground color, background color, you can set those as custom properties, and you select that web component as if it's an HTML element, and you just set define that custom property, and like it gets like sucked in and used. No, it's really cool. So all these things.
I think what's really exciting about the way what you demoed and built is how you've got your custom elements completely built from scratch. You can do whatever you like in that. You can make it work any way you want, and then you can make it speak to your React application, and vice versa. Which is very powerful.
And I don't, and this seemed like a lot of work. I probably wouldn't roll my custom elements or my web components by hand. I'd probably use something like Lit or like like it's kind of this whole thing of the extensible web. Like all the stuff I did right now is a bit too like it's fine, but like it's just the developer experience isn't that great, and you can abstract a lot of that away. So, but I just wanted to show this is just plain JavaScript. Like I'm not importing a third-party library. I'm literally writing JavaScript here and sucking it into React.
I mean, I immediately see a use case for what you've shown here, and that we have like a legacy application that's being rewritten to use Next, but in bits, right?
Yes.
because it's, and we cut microservice. The way it goes.
Yes.
So there's still lots of interactive things that are just written in plain old JavaScript floating around in it. For UI interactions and things like that. And there's no reason now to not just put those in a web component and use them as we're porting things across. I mean, I think it's a really, really useful thing for that as well.
I think the biggest win for web components is like things like payment widgets or whatever, So I don't want to name any companies, but like there's a couple of payment integration services that like on some of the products that I work for, where like you have to use their widget, so someone gets to the checkout phase and it shows them like a little thing where they have to enter, and it does like all the 3D secure and all that gross banking stuff. But the way you do that is by pulling down a script, then doing an API request, getting a number, then pulling a new script down with that ID in the URL, and then you have to assign it a DOM node, and you have to use like refs in HTML to listen and see if it has mounted yet and all of that stuff. And that can very easily just be a web component, regardless of React or any of that stuff.
Exactly.
I'm actually surprised that like this type of thing. I know, for example, Lottie, like the animation thing, like they expose their animations as web components. So if you build a little animation thing, they have a specific web component, and you just pass it like that encoded string for your animation into the web component, and it handles all of that for you, and that's really cool. So I do think this is the thing, and I wanted to say that, like initially when we started asking the question, is I don't actually think this is that huge for React. I think it's cool in the cases where you need to use web components, in the cases where you need to rely on the DOM in a sane manner, because the problem with React up until this point is that like the underlying philosophy of React is that the DOM is the problem. And that is like, if it isn't clear, that's a philosophy I agree with, and I think that's the biggest differentiator between something like Angular and React. And I'm saying this as someone who's been doing a lot of Angular work recently. I do appreciate how close Angular tries to stay to the DOM, because it just from a job security perspective, like it means that all this weird stuff about the DOM that I know like comes really handy, whereas React is just like, this sucks, it's crazy, this is not a way to live, and it just says we're going to use a virtual DOM, and whereas Angular is like, no, like we're building on the platform, we're actually like if the way the DOM does it, we're going to do it that way. Whereas React is just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is insane. Which I agree. The DOM is a massive problem. The DOM is like collectively holding the web back. But so the thing is, because of that, because React is like, we are going to have our own virtual DOM that's just easier to work with. That makes it tricky when you want to actually use stuff from the actual DOM, because they don't exist in React. Because React completely bypasses the DOM. And I think now this gives a neat way, if you want to do that, to do that in a way that's still within the React mental model. You don't have to pull a ref, get a ref from an element, pull that ref, imperatively interface with that thing, do some weird stuff. I'm definitely seeing how a lot of stuff like chart.js and whatever, which, I've previously had to use refs and stuff for, where you can just wrap that in a web component now.
Really?
So like even if you think about D3 or whatever, like having D3 play nice with React kind of been a bit of a pain because of that exact thing. D3 kind of interfaces with the DOM directly. So yeah, like so what I wanted to say, it's it's kind of like this thing of like, it's like not to be too cheesy, but a small step for React and what's the Neil Armstrong thing, a giant leap for the web ecosystem at large. Because I do think there's marginal benefits for React. If you just do React, you don't do anything. This is not going to anything else is not going to directly influence you. But the implications for the web platform at large and web component adoption, like let's be real about just the ubiquity of React and just the market share that React has. The fact that web components on a first-class citizen in React is massive.
It's huge.
Like that makes the case for using and creating web components so much more appealing than they previously were. Because previously it was such a mission to get web components to work with React.
And it wouldn't give you what you what would much easier just to use React, bypass the DOM to do exactly that.
Or even no, but like even if there's stuff that are only web components and you have no other way of integrating it. So the case for web components weren't that compelling because it's like, okay, cool, like like if we look at like I looked at the shoelace thing, and like it has a specific section for React and how to use like shoelace in React, like, and you had to do all these extra steps. Like, let me just bring it up again, just to kind of prove the point. Just shoelace and share my screen. Not actual shoelaces. Like it has a section here, where you can install or whatever, but then like like you have to do this, you have to wrap it in a component, tree shaking, like event handling, like there's all this weird stuff, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And now you can just use the plain installation. You saw me do it. Like you can literally just go.
Exactly.
You can just go npm install shoelace, and then just say import the CSS and import the input. Like you just have those two lines where you import it, and now you basically just use it as if it's HTML that's built into the browser. So like I think that knowing that you're not going to have dedicated documentation for how to get your web component to work with React is massive. Like that's I am definitely I have some like web component stuff that I've been wanting to do for ages, and like it just makes it so more compelling to actually just sit down and do it now, because like you can seamlessly use it in React. Like I probably need to head out. Like I don't know, let's maybe close off with one more quick question. I don't know if there's anything on your side.
No, I think all the things I have been covered. I think it's as you say, it's an important step in the broader thinking about the web and what it is and what we do on it.
And this isn't just being like, this isn't that great, but it's it's still good. Like it's not searching for some silver lining to something that seems inconsequential. It's like you have to look at this at web scale, at the scale that the web moves. And the scale that the web operates at. Things take very, very, very long to come to fruition. Like container queries, container queries, what was that?
12 years.
12 years, 12 years, So it took 12 years for a single piece of CSS. So like things move really slowly, but the scale is unfathomable. So even if it takes like 20 years for web components to kind of be the de facto like way to do a component based UI elements, it takes a long time, and like kind of obviously every step we take towards that is like moving in the right direction. But the implications of that, the scale of the implications of that is just insane. But yeah, if anything, if anyone like wants to take anything concrete away from this, it's like maybe go have a look at some cool web component stuff that you really dig, and you can just like try and just pull it directly into React. It's as simple as that.
I shared a link to the Open WC org site, and they've got a whole section there of component libraries that you can have a look at.
Yes.
Spectrum. What's that other one? Varden.
Varden's actually a Java UI library. Ooh, we lost Justin. His connection probably cut. That man's probably losing his mind right now.
Okay, StreamYard kicked me out. Weird.
Oh, you're back. So, but yeah, no, agreed. And I think, like, here's the thing. I think what's going to be the really big thing is so it's still in progress, but the canonical way to implement material design is through web components. If you go, I think I'm not going to share my screen now, but I think you can just Google material design web, and it's actually, there's no so previously they had different ways to do material design in React, how to get it, so they would recommend third-party libraries, but like the canonical way now is web components. Do you want to share your screen, Justin, just so for me to sanity check that what I'm saying right now isn't absolute nonsense?
Looks like it. Let me share.
I'm too lazy to just do it by myself now.
Meet Material Web 1.0. Start using
so go into that. Okay, so that's, it might be publicly released already, but last time I checked, click on components there on the left-hand side.
Where am I seeing that?
Far left side. About second last navbar item.
Why am I missing this?
Okay. Do you see where it says blog on the far left navbar?
Blog. Oh, I'm sharing. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
You're sharing the wrong screen. I was probably opened a new tab. Okay, so if you go components,
tab, damn it.
if you go on components above that.
Hang on. Sorry, everyone.
Okay, oh man, if you want to do something, you have to do it. If you want to do something right, you have to do it yourself, man. So. No, where are you now? No, you need to click on components. Okay, let me just.
Oh, I clicked on blog.
Like I said, if you want to do it right, you have to do it yourself. So components there on the far left. No, don't click blog again. Don't do it. So if you go for
hang on, I need to stay. I need to stay in this tab. Stupid target equals blank. There we go.
Okay. Go like common buttons or whatever. And I think it has like the
web.
Yes. Material web components.
Yeah.
Oh jeez. Yeah, I don't. You have to share again. Okay. But But so effectively.
Bloody Google, man.
Like this entire 2-hour session has been leading up to this point. Of Schalk and Justin do Googling live in a stream and
Schalk
get it wrong.
can't figure out how to navigate the internet.
Let's just say you have to take my word for it. But the canonical way to use material design on the web is through web components. That is the recommended way. So, which is very interesting because like there's a lot of libraries that implement material design for React specifically, or for Vue, or for Svelte, or whatever. And now the implication is going to be that it's all just going to be web components, and you just pull those web components into whatever framework you're using. So yeah, that's very interesting and very, if you just think about something as like Bootstrap, imagine Bootstrap was web components. It can't be, for obvious reasons, because it isn't as encapsulated as like in terms of the underlying logic as something like material design. But yeah, like imagine like something that you can take a component, you can take a button, you can just pop it into your plain HTML, you can pop it into your React project, into your Vue project, and your Svelte, your WordPress, your Laravel. Like you just pop that bad boy in there. It doesn't matter what the framework is. Like that is a very compelling story. And like with this interop, we're there. There. Like React was kind of the last holdout. And yeah, like so I think give it a year or two. Like I think in 2 years we're going to be in a very different space in terms of web components, purely just because of just the biggest market share framework now like has complete integration and like a easy developer experience with that. All right. Yeah,
great. Well,
cool.
Thanks so much, Schalk. Thanks everyone who joined. Recording will be kept on our YouTube channel as always if you want to come back to it. And also please share links and stuff if you can. That would be great.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention one other thing. This is just unrelated. But this is just one thing in React 19. There's a lot of really interesting things. And if you go and check out our last JavaScript breakpoints, which was with Schalk, there's like an hour-long discussion of all the other features in React 19.
Yes. I don't know if I would recommend it, but like, yeah, because
I really enjoyed that because everyone was just figuring stuff out. Yeah,
exactly.
Cool.
So, but I'm like, yeah, like it's like, so we're kind of figuring it out as we go, whereas you're not going to get like the YouTube like quick breakdown like intro to React 19
because I was coming into that with all the same questions everyone else had.
Exactly. I really appreciate those things, but if you're looking for a quick breakdown and summary, that's maybe not it. But if you want to really get a sense for how does this fit into and what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? Yeah.
And I also like that you would use this in this scenario was really good. So I recommend that. Check it out.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Thanks everyone.
Cool. Have a great evening, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.